This is Conversations on Careers and Professional Life, a podcast from the Foster School of Business, MBA Career Management Office. I'm your host, Gregory Heller. On each episode, I talk with guests from faculty and staff to students and business leaders about the skills and strategies that can help you design a professional life that you're happy with. This episode features part one of my conversation with Adam Schmidt, Foster MBA class of 2020 and liaison to career management for the MBAA. We recorded this episode in the early winter of 2020, before the coronavirus pandemic upended in-person education and career search activities. But I believe that the advice about credibility is even more important during this period of social distancing and remote meetings. In this first part of our conversation, Adam shares the message of a presentation he made to the incoming MBA class of 2020 about the importance of building credibility. I'm here today with Adam Schmidt. Adam is a class of 2020 MBA candidate at the Foster School of Business, and I'm really excited to have him here to talk about two things. One, the pivot that you've executed, sort of the two-step pivot that you've executed in your career, which we'll talk about. And the second relates to a talk you gave at the beginning of the year to the incoming class. You are the MBAA liaison to career management, and you gave a talk to the incoming class at the beginning of the year about credibility. So I want to start there. Welcome to Conversations on Careers and Professional Life, Adam.
Thank you, Gregory. It's fun to be here.
So you talked to the incoming class about credibility, and you detailed that in, I think it was 5 different domains. How many of those do you remember now?
That's right. I think I can remember them all. If
Yeah.
not, I'll pull my phone out, because there was one slide that that went along and helped me remember in September. But the quick talk I gave was based on the best advice I had been given by actually my predecessor in the first year career management role and class of 2019 MBAA president Marshall Slayton. When I got here, she said one of the most important things you can do in the first few months of the program is to build credibility with your classmates. And over the course of my first year, not only did I find that advice to be helpful and true, but that it needed to be expounded on, that you need to build credibility, yes, with your cohort and your teammates and the people who are going to become your friends and your professional network for the rest of your life. But there's so many other stakeholders within the MBA process and within your sort of career and professional journey that it's really, really critical to build that trust and credibility with upfront as well. So those 5 groups, in addition to your classmates, include the faculty and staff here in the MBA program. It includes the alumni network. We spend a lot of time as MBAs reaching out and learning about career pathways from other MBA alums. And so that's a critical set of stakeholders. Employers, the recruiters and the hiring managers and the representatives of all the various companies and firms that hire here are an important part of this process. And lastly, most sort of introspectively, I think it's really important to build credibility with yourself. And I'm happy to sort of talk more about any of those 5 stakeholder groups.
Let's start with building credibility with yourself.
Sure.
Because your background was not in a traditional business role or corporate domain. You came out of teaching and then working for Teach for America and then working in a school system.
Right.
How did you approach building credibility with yourself, that introspective credibility with that background to prepare for the interview process as well as life as an MBA?
Yeah. I think it's buzzy to talk about imposter syndrome, but it's real for a lot of people. And I experienced sort of small versions of it in the first few months as an MBA. I didn't have a background in finance or accounting. And while I had led teams and helped build an organization, there was still so much new language, vocabulary, concepts to like realign as I came into business school. and at times felt that I wasn't able to contribute to the conversation in the way that I had been able to in a sector or role where I was perhaps more comfortable or more senior. And so it was important for me to constantly remind myself that many, many other classmates were in similar positions. One of the things that attracted me to Foster in the first place is the diversity of the student body. There are a lot of folks who come here from non-business backgrounds who even want sort of alternative careers post-MBA in areas like nonprofit leadership and sustainability and the outdoor industry. And in addition to that, I found that it was very helpful to ensure that my overall sort of lifestyle didn't change when it came to how I have learned over the course of my career to take care of myself. So ensuring that I still put aside time, even in a really busy fall quarter as a first-year MBA, to run and to bike and to exercise and to read and to take time to do the things that keep me whole so that I don't feel any different, even though I'm under all these additional pressures. And I think those two things, like ensuring that I'm still me and putting in the work and sort of the self setting the right expectations for myself around how I was entering this sort of world of business and MBA life made me feel more and more confident over the course of the fall that not only do I belong here, but I have a real opportunity to contribute, to engage, and to not only grow myself, but help people around me grow too.
I like the idea that maintaining those routines and those habits is a big part of building that confidence around yourself. So moving on from the internal, how do you build the credibility with your classmates?
I think this is the easiest part to talk about, but maybe the hardest part to put into practice. This is simple stuff. It's showing up. It's showing up on time. It's being prepared for class and especially team meetings. The MBA program is team-based, especially in the first year and especially in the fall quarter. When you're not in class and when you're not eating or sleeping, like you're with your team. And if you aren't building trust with them and real relationships and showing that you can be counted on, there's a world in which you're not going to be listened to or your contributions won't be taken into full account, or you're just not going to get out of this experience, which is centered around the team, what you need to be successful here. So there's, I think, again, simple stuff around being present and being engaged that is critical to building credibility with others. I think you also have to get involved in the program in whatever way works for you. But outside of class, you need to show up to club events. You need to support the Challenge for Charity initiative in some way. You need to, maybe find what your niche is going to be and join a board or help run a club or volunteer with the recruitment ambassadors. Like, show that you aren't just here for yourself, but you're here for the team and you're here for the entire program. Foster's small. It's 125 students in a class. And it means that in order to have the kinds of opportunities that most of us come here wanting and that larger MBA programs can offer, it means we all have to roll up our sleeves and get engaged. And that's a critical way to build credibility with others in the program too.
So you became the career management rep for your class, and you also started a club.
I did, with my classmate Maggie Polachek. We started the Foster Business and Policy Group. We saw pretty early on here an opportunity to help fill in some of the gaps between the curriculum and how real-world practitioners have to manage business strategy in a really political and regulatory environment. So we've created a club of students interested in policy and politics and regulation and created a series of events and opportunities where we can discuss those things, where we can bring in experts to give us a briefing on how what we're learning in sort of finance or accounting or strategy like actually looks within a specific political context. And we've even been able to organize annual treks out to Washington, D.C. to help introduce future business leaders to the way that the nation's capital works. That I think that entire experience with Maggie was another way of building early credibility here too for me. But the insight here is not that you need to start a new club when you come to the MBA program. But I think it's maybe an extreme example of how you can give back and contribute to the program in a way that makes it better for everybody.
I think it's part of the ethos here at Foster. When you see something, or you see a gap, or you see an opportunity, that it's incumbent upon you to take action and to make the program and the school better than it was when you arrived.
Right, and that's going to look different for everybody based on their capacity with time and other outside commitments. But there is an expectation in a small program, and especially at the team level, that you are engaged and you build not just relationships and trust, but you build real credibility with each other through that process. I think a really interesting outcome of building strong credibility with classmates is related to the career search. So we find sometimes that students are given an interview opportunity or even an offer for an internship or a job in which they're either no longer interested or no longer able to take because they've taken a different offer or final interview or whatever else it is. And I think our class has done a really good job of recommending others for those opportunities. I'm no longer able to go to this final interview because I've accepted a different internship. But here are 3 of my classmates who I think would be a really good fit. And here are their names and email addresses and phone numbers, right? Like that can only happen when you've actually gotten to know people. And you're only going to be a person that your classmate recommends if you've put in the right amount of work to build relationships and credibility with them. So there's a self-interest, of course, in this, but it's one that, I don't know, keeps our ecosystem just churning.
So you started to talk about employers, and employers bleeds over into alumni. It's a soft boundary between those. How did you approach, or how do you recommend approaching building credibility with that constituency, the employers and the alumni of the Foster School?
I think they are very interrelated because many of the folks we first meet at potential employers are our alumni. This, again, is simple on paper, but it can be difficult to remember and difficult to put into practice. And it has a lot to do with etiquette, how you're reaching out to individuals.
You mean by email?
Exactly. You know, is it email? Is it LinkedIn? What words are you using? What tone are you using? The best practice I think that many of us have found is to provide very specific options. Like, these are days and times that I'm personally available for coffee or a phone call, right? Let's be as flexible as we can. What might work for you, right? Like reducing the amount of work that the person you're reaching out to has to do in order to make the connection with you. The follow-up, even before we get to the follow-up, like, are you showing up on time? Are you showing up prepared? This is something that we've even heard from employers a few times in the last year, that we don't always show up to the coffee chat or the interview sort of fully briefed on the company, on its mission, on its values, on its current strategy.
Things that are happening in the news
right.
that week.
Yeah, and you're going to build a lot more credibility. You're going to show engagement and interest. This person's going to want to pass you along or bring you in for an interview if you've done your homework about sort of who this company is and what roles are available and how you might fit in. So it's again about being prepared and taking the time and using all the resources available to you within the school and within the network to ensure that you're not just there to have coffee, but you're there to like get some questions answered and come away with specific next steps. There's follow-up afterward. Are you sending a thank you email, and when are you doing it? Are you sending a physical thank you card, which I think is something that fewer and fewer people are doing these days. And so if you do it, you might stand out. These are the things that, again, seem easy, but when you're in the middle of the first year of your MBA or the middle of a recruitment period and you're juggling all these different balls and priorities, can be very difficult to remember to do. But they go a long way in building the credibility of yourself. And I think on the aggregate, they build the credibility of the entire program and the brand of the Foster Business School.
It's great advice. I want to back up to just underscore a couple of things there. When you say coffee chats, you're talking about informational interviews.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about scheduling those, you're suggesting that when you reach out and you ask for an informational interview, that you provide a finite number of opportunities, time slots, locations, and methods by which you could make that happen.
Right on.
So to not leave it completely open-ended, like I'd love to have coffee with you and talk about your job, and then leave it up to the person on the other end to give you times, and then there's a back and forth. And also not to give like, I'm free on Friday mornings, just one option, but to give a range of options as well as the in-person versus, potentially doing it on the phone if scheduling is more challenging.
Right on. Be as flexible as you can be. Remember that most working professionals aren't scheduling meetings 1 or 2 days in advance, but 1 to 2 weeks, maybe even longer. So thinking well ahead of time about the lead time you need to talk to someone, to confirm a meeting, and to ensure that lines up. I mean, this isn't about credibility, but it's about sort of your own efficacy. You want to make sure that lines up with things like application deadlines and so on. You can't start networking 2 weeks before an application is due or an interview process begins. So it's critical to have a plan and, yes, to provide as much flexibility as you can early in that lead time so you can talk to all the right people in the process.
I often recommend to students that within that first quarter, that fall quarter, that you have 10 to 20 informational interviews. And that can be, some of those can be with second-year students, but you want a number of those to be with people who are actually working in those companies. And you have 10 weeks in that quarter. And if you can only schedule 2 weeks out, that means that if you start scheduling as soon as the quarter begins at the end of September, you really only have 8 weeks, and you have less when you take out Thanksgiving and you take out people starting to get ready for the holidays. So you almost want to start scheduling those opportunities before the program begins, even before orientation in some cases. Have some of those under your belt over the summer before you come into the program. And then to keep the cadence of meeting with people at employers up through the winter and spring quarter, and then even over the summer of your internship, as well as when you come back in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it, it's like a never-ending process, but it's most critical up front. And I think I want to underline what you said about starting early. We start a little bit later than a lot of other top 20, top 30 MBA programs here because of the quarter system. And that means that, while orientation starts right before Labor Day, classes don't start until late September, which gives us some additional time before the 10-week quarter begins in September. And honestly, I think even in August, to start, hitting the pavement, walking, biking, busing down to Amazon or out to Redmond to Microsoft, or just picking up the phone and beginning to build relationships with some of the youngest alums who've either just started their careers, their post-MBA careers, or maybe a year out. And there's no real reason why using the month of August shouldn't be something we're helping students think about and prioritize. And then don't forget the value of the phone call or the Skype connection. Well, it might be difficult to block out 2 hours to take a bus downtown and then come back after the coffee chat in time for class. You can sneak in a 20 or 25-minute phone call between classes or over the lunch period. And that allows you to start generating more connections earlier. And I've found that doing some of those phone calls first helps not only make the introduction and get the conversation flowing, but it's a very natural next step to then meet for coffee, right? And that can be the ask you have at the end of the phone call, like, how can I be helpful to you? Well, this was a great way to start this conversation. There's so much more I'd like to talk to you about. Is there any way we could find time for coffee in a few weeks? And then you've already got them on the phone, and maybe they're in front of their calendar and you're in front of yours. And so you can schedule live with them on that call for the next available opportunity. I found that to be really helpful. I was ducking into team rooms during the orientation month to do these quick phone calls so that in October, I was finally meeting these folks in person, and I had it all mapped out from the beginning.
In the book, The 2-Hour Job Search, the author calls that like the foot in the door method, right? You get this low-level commitment, which then you can parlay into a greater commitment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most people will take a phone call. I mean, especially our young alums. And you can often tell, like, they're multitasking. They're on a headset, and they might be checking their emails, or maybe they're eating their lunch or something. But it's that foot in the door. It gives you the chance to start building rapport, and then you can immediately schedule the next engagement. And I've found that to be a really great way to begin this networking process, which is, again, critical to building your credibility here.
Great. So moving on from the employers and alumni constituency, let's talk about faculty and staff. And I think that my area of interest here is probably a little bit more on the staff side and building credibility with the staff. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to approach this.
I think it all comes back again to preparation and engagement. And again, it's easier said than done because we're not only taking class and doing network. I mean, it's a busy process, but it's important in the limited amount of time you have with faculty. I think especially core faculty in the first year, that you're doing your very best to demonstrate your engagement in their material. So that's being on time. It's being engaged in the classroom, and with technology that's getting harder and harder, I find myself checking my phone or moving from my notes on my laptop to, an interesting website or article I want to read, or maybe someone Slacked me something. That's going to happen. But the more engaged you are in class, the more prepared you are for class discussion, asking questions during break too, if you're not comfortable asking in front of the entire class, gives the instructor a chance to get to know you and see not only your engagement but the way in which the class is engaged. Our teachers in the first year are really phenomenal. They give a lot of time that they don't necessarily have to being good teachers. And I think this is my bias as a former educator, but it's critical that we reciprocate the hard work they're doing to be the best teacher they can be by really working hard to be the best students that we can be. And again, I know we all have bad days and bad weeks and busy weeks, but there are definitely times where there are times where sometimes it's hard, but it's a critical part of the process.
It's a big part of why
it's
every
why we're
student
here.
is here. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, not everybody has to be a 4.0 student, and not everybody's going to be. But we're here to learn in addition to get a job. And building credibility with faculty not only helps keep great faculty in the classroom, but I think that it also provides the opportunity to build a longer-term relationship with the faculty member who has his or her own network will be more than eager to maintain the relationship with you after the quarter, to give you advice, to help you get connected to the right people around the community. As a club president, we've relied on faculty not only for their own contributions to our events, but to help them or to help us find new people to bring into the community. And that only happens when you have a relationship with somebody. And the relationship that relationship has to start by being a good student. So I think that's what I mean about faculty. And I'm going to say the same thing about staff. Show up prepared, show up on time. And so really this all comes back down to personal management. How are we organizing ourselves? How are we holding ourselves accountable to that organization? And how are we taking care of ourselves, back to my first point, so that we can be the best students possible, be the best teammates possible, and put the amount of time and effort we need to into preparing for and engaging constructively in the career process. It's not easy, but nothing in life is, right, Gregory?
Yeah, well, I think that's well said. The message Adam shares is a powerful and important one. We always need to be building and maintaining credibility with ourselves and the people around us. For the MBA student, those people include classmates, faculty and staff, alumni, and employers. The surest way to build that credibility is to show up, be present, and uphold your commitments. As we wrapped up this part of our conversation, Adam made a point that in a small program like the full-time MBA at Foster, it is even more important that students take responsibility for upholding their commitments, not just to build their own credibility, but to maintain the collective credibility of the program. Be sure to check out part 2 of our conversation, where Adam and I talk about his career pivot. Thank you for listening to another episode of Conversations on Careers and Professional Life. I'd love to hear what you think about the podcast. You can email me at gheller@uw.edu. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or classmate.